All right then, let's begin. What I want you to do with your textbooks is go to chapter 3, page 51, and this is inside the 6th edition. If you've got the 5th edition, it's going to be different, and if you do have the 5th edition, please let everybody else know where exactly you are, where that page would be, so that they don't obviously miss out on the lecture as well. So what we're going to be doing today in this specific unit is looking at these 7 things. One, we're going to identify the 3 major flows in the economy. 2, we're going to distinguish between a stock variable and a flow variable. We're going to look at the interdependence between households and firms, the role of the government in a closed economy, the role of the foreign sector in an open economy, the role of financial institutions in a circular flow of income and spending, and then lastly, identify the various injections and leakages from the circular flow of income and spending. Now you realize that this specific unit was one that you did in first semester. So this is really just a recap. But whilst it's a recap, the importance of this specific session is that this forms the foundation of everything that we're going to be looking into this coming semester. So the more you know this, the more you master this specific unit, the better obviously it is for you going forward. So first things first, right? We all know the 3 major flows in an economy, and we realize that it's production, income, and spending. Now, in regards to production, in this case, production is just the action of making or manufacturing from components or raw materials. That's really it. That's what production is. Now, just out of curiosity, I know you guys did this last semester as well. Tell me, what are the sources of production? What are the sources of production? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute and let us know. One 100%, we've got capital. 3 more. What else are the sources of production? Land, good. 2 more. Labor, awesome. Last one. Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Right. And we find that all of these sources are right over here. And yes, you will have access to these slides. There's just a few spelling errors that I want to correct, but other than that, you will certainly have them by the end of the week. Right. So we've got production and we've got the sources of production right above them. Now, what happens is that this is where we start our idea from. We say that, hey, first things first, there must be production. Then what production does is that it then generates income for the various factors of production, right? And we find that those various factors of production get paid in either rent, wages and salaries, interest, or profit. So in the chat, what I want you to maybe give me an answer in regards to is what types of income match the specific sources of production. So if you look at the factors of production, how would you match them with the relevant income? Love it. 3 more. 100% of the money, Roberto. Land, rent, Amber, brilliant. Land, sorry, labor, salaries, and wages. We've got two more guys. In concern with, nice. Cananello, nice. Entrepreneurship, profit. In concern with your question, rent remuneration, that would be natural resources. Absolutely, guys, absolutely. And we find that the answer to that obviously is right over here. Rent, wages, salaries, interest, and profit. And money received typically from work or through investments. Now, what's very also important to understand here, guys, is that when you look at natural resources, there are two elements that come into play, right? The first is that we talk about what is the what is the quality of this natural resource? And also, what is the quantity of this natural resource as well? Because you can have a lot of land, but if that land is arid, say some of the land that's in Namibia, then you're not growing anything. And if you have very good quality land and there's not enough of it, then it's very hard for you to obviously produce an income, right? And we know that natural resources are obviously divided into two. You have your non-renewable, and then you also have your renewable as well, right? So in this case, a non-renewable will be something like gold. Once it's taken out of the ground, it can't be replaced at that specific area, which is why mine companies will obviously move from place to place looking for more gold and the like. We also have exhaustible assets as well, right? Which in actuality allows us to use them over and over and over and over again. So actually, this is the same thing. Non-renewable or exhaustible assets, exactly the same thing, right? And we can further divide these two also again through primary and secondary as well, right? So primary factors will be things like natural resources and labor, and then obviously secondary will be capital and entrepreneurship. So let me just repeat that thought again. When we look at natural resources, we've got non-renewable and renewable, right? Once we take something out of the ground, we can't put it back. But there are things that we can consistently use over and over again. Things like air, for instance, right? Which is obviously for free, but we can use that over and over again. When it comes down to labor, it's exactly the same thing as well. We're looking at quality versus quantity as well, right? And in this case, when we talk about quantity, we're looking at quality, we're looking at how good do people do what they're doing. Are they specialists at what they do? In first semester, we came across a guy called Adam Smith, who came up with the thing about productivity, that if you put everybody and they do exactly what they do really, really well, you have a very good labor force in that regard, right? And that was about absolute advantage and advantage as well. Yes, Christopher.
The labor quality and quantity thing brings to mind the sort of hypothetical theory of if you have infinite monkeys, infinite time, and infinite typewriters, you'll eventually get the works of Shakespeare. But there was also, like, when they actually when the study when scientists actually tried that, all they got was very messy typewriters and broken stuff.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Very good illustration there, Christopher. Very good illustration there, right? So back to the point at hand, we really want quality at the end of the day. We don't just want anybody, right? We want quality. So the better you are specialized when it comes to labor, the more income you can obviously earn. And from an entrepreneur perspective, if you own a business and you have quality labor, you can produce better goods. Let's talk about capital though. When we speak about capital, guys, are we saying capital in the sense of money, or do we look at capital in the sense of goods that can be used to create other goods? Put it into the chat, let me know. Great. So 100% capital is really in this case used as goods that can be used to create other goods. A printer at Postnet, right? That good is used to create other services and also goods as well, i.e., printed material or scans and the like. Now, in regards to combination of both, not in this case, unfortunately, from just a strictly production perspective or economics perspective, we just look at it from the point of view as of look at it as a point of we look at it at the point of view as that this capital that we are earning is basically used for entrepreneurship. Then would be how we utilize all of these things together to create a specific good. All right, that is now entrepreneurship as a whole. All right, so we take these and obviously we become yes, Christopher.
For an example for like entrepreneurship using the other three, it's like say the full sort of cycle of a of gold. For example, the miners get out the ore, the company sort of smelts it and purifies it. It goes the to a jeweler who makes a chain or a ring and stuff like that.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Right, and obviously that creates an income, and as a result of the income, guys, then we move to number three, where we spend. Right, and we realize that when we spend, there are four sources of spending. We either have your household, we have your firms, we have your government, and we have your foreign sector. Now, something very important for you guys to note, especially just around the symbols and so forth that this goes to, I would say that households in this case would be C, firms, e.g., investment spending, will be I, governments in this case would be G, and the foreign sector would then be X minus Z. Another thing that you also find about spending is that the symbol for spending is A. So A is equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus Z. Very important for you guys to master this. I'll even say make sure wherever you are, you have written it in some sort of notebook of some sort, because this is very, very important to understand. You're going to see a lot of this throughout the rest of the semester. Also, when it comes to income, the symbol for that is Y. Right? Now back to the thought at hand. We have production. What our production does is that it generates an income. As a result of it generating an income, it is then spent on all available goods and services. And these things all happen at the same time, right? Let's shift focus to the next idea around this, which would be for you to explain the following. With the aid of a figure, the three flows in the economy. Name the three flows in the economy. Now, I know that you don't have a figure in front of you, so what I'm going to ask you is instead in the chat, put down from the first until the last bit how the flow would go. The flow of the economy. Put that into the chat. So I'll just read that again. Explain with the aid of a figure the three flows in the economy. So within the chat, because I know that you can't necessarily draw something, I'll ask that you, in order, put down what those three flows are. And then we'll discuss how they are related. Yes, Caranello. Caranello, I saw your hand up. Okay, just for the sake of time, on page, would it be production, consumption, and exchange? Interesting answer. Not necessarily, Jared, but thank you for attempting. I highly appreciate it. Let's get some other attempts, guys. And thanks, Jared, for opening the door in that regard. What are the three flows in the economy? The first one is right. Jared, by the way, the first one is right. Awesome. So I'm guessing Lorato was finishing off what Jared was putting across, and Sizwe, 100%, right? It all comes down to production, income, and then spending. And for you to find that answer in that new textbook, it's page 53, figure 3.1. So let me know now, how are these all related? If you had to build a story around that, how would these three all be related? Yes, Kieran.
Yes, hi. So I think it's basically you produce a product or something, and then you sell it for income, and then you use that income to buy more things for yourself or for the company to produce more. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is, you sounded unsure there. That is 100% on the money, man. Right, guys. So
That actually,
that's. Go ahead.
oh no. So I was just gonna say that actually makes me feel better because every time I answer in economics, it gets shaky because you never know if you're right. And this module is deep. Yo.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Fair enough. The nice thing, what I'll do with this specific module, guys, is that I want you to ask as many questions as possible, and I actually want you to get things wrong within the lessons that we have. Then it'll be easier for you to obviously answer things when it comes to the tests and the exams as well. But thanks so much for the attempt, Kieran. Highly appreciated, and thank you all for also putting stuff into the chat. In this case, I'm talking about Sizwe, who also had a very good answer there as well. Right. Next up, guys, let's talk about distinguishing between a stock variable and a flow variable. Now, I know that you did this last semester, but please let me know in the chat what is a stock variable, and then let me know what a flow variable is as well. Boom. Nice. Absolutely brilliant, guys. Absolutely brilliant. Right? Stock measured at a specific time, flow measured over an interval of time. Give me one example of each, or rather, let's go 3 examples of each. Give me 3 examples of stocks first, and then give me 3 examples of flows. You can put that into the chat as well. The reason why we're going through a lot of questions, guys, is that this is basically material you have covered. So I just want to bring it back to the forefront of your minds. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Right. And that's 100% on the money. Now let's shift focus and go on to the interdependence between houses and firms. But before we get there, in your textbooks on page 52, I want you to highlight the following. Underneath 3.2, production, income, and spending, you'll see the word production in bold. And I want you to highlight that. And it says the following. Note that the focus is on production. It stands to reason, therefore, that the total production of goods and services is of major concern to economists. But production is not pursued for its own sake. The ultimate aim is to use or consume the products to satisfy human wants. The logical sequence is therefore as follows. Production creates income, as you guys have put across. The production process by the various income earned in the production process by the various factors of production, and this income is then spent to purchase the products. The sequence contains 3 major elements: production, income, and spending. Make sure that you highlight that. Then on page 53, and you guys will let me know if I'm going too fast. Put it into the chat, eh? Figure 3.1, make sure that you highlight that as well, and highlight the gray box underneath it. Being production generates income. Make sure that you have that highlighted. Then right beneath that little gray box, you'll find the following words. Production, income, and spending are all flows. To understand what that means, we have to distinguish between stocks, which are measured at a particular point in time, and flows, which are measured over a period. Make sure that's highlighted. Box 3.1, stocks and flow, is a very, very important topic, and I'd want you to just make sure that you have highlighted just that topic, box 3.1, stocks and flows, so that you have the examples and obviously once again the definitions. Underneath page 54, let's go there. And like I said, if I'm going too fast, unmute your mic and let me know. I'll be more than happy to slow down just a bit. Underneath 3.3, sources of production, the factors of production. Highlight all of the following topics, just the topics. 1, natural resources, land. Right, and perhaps underneath land or natural resources, land, I'd want you to highlight the first sentence. Natural resources, sometimes called land, consist of all the gifts of nature. Then still on page 54. Second column to the right. I'd want you to highlight the following. It's got non-renewable and exhaustible assets in the same exact sentence. But once they have been used, they cannot be replaced. We therefore refer to minerals as non-renewable or exhaustible assets. Next sentence, as with all other factors of production, both the quality and the quantity of natural resources are important. Absolutely. Next bit for you to highlight would be under labor. And under labor, I'd want you to highlight the following. Goods and services cannot be produced without human effort. Labor can be defined as the exercise of human mental and physical effort in the production of goods and services. Box 3.2 on page 55 is important, but not as important as the things that we've just highlighted. So what I want you to do in your spare time is obviously read through that. It just talks about the division of labor, being in this case, those who do what they really do well, making sure you have a lot of those because it will allow you to obviously work much better. It gives you the 5 reasons as to why it works and also begins to share insight as to why it also doesn't work as well, or the dangers of that as well. What's important though is on page 56, on the top left paragraph, just before capital, right? I'd want you to highlight that full paragraph and it reads as follows. The quantity of labor depends on the size of the population and the proportion of the population that is able and willing to do work. The latter in turn depends on the factors such as the age and gender distribution of the population. The proportion of children, women, and elderly people all affect the available quantity of labor, which is called the labor force. The quality of labor is even more important than the quantity of labor. The quality of labor is usually described in terms of human capital, which refers to the skill, knowledge, and health of the workers. Education, training, and experience are all important determinants of human capital. All right, let's take another bit to highlight. We're going to go all the way into 3.4 and then we'll continue. Next thing to highlight will be the following on page 56 still under capital. It says that capital comprises all manufactured resources such as machines, tools, and buildings, which are used in the production of other goods and services. Capital goods are not produced for their own sake, but to produce other goods. It is important to remember, however, that when we talk about capital as a factor of production, we're referring to all those tangible things that are used to produce other things. Now, under entrepreneurship on page 57, I want you to highlight the following paragraph. It's the second paragraph from the top after the bold entrepreneurship. It says, the entrepreneur is the driving force behind production. Entrepreneurs are the initiators, the people who take the initiative. They are also innovators, the people who introduce new products and new techniques on a commercial basis. And they are the risk bearers, the people who take the chances. They do this because they anticipate that they will make a profit or profits, but they may suffer losses and perhaps bankruptcy, right? And we all know entrepreneurs that have done very well, but we also know entrepreneurs that have really done badly and have gotten into bankruptcy. Just out of curiosity, tell me in the chat some famous entrepreneurs you know from South Africa. Alan Gray, yep. And boy, oh boy, does that institution have quite a lot of money. Pusi Tembekweo, definitely one of my favorite professional speakers of note. Anton, man, that's a very, very good one as well. Very, very good, very rich. Okay, okay. I didn't know that Creeper Collie was a South African thing. Thanks for enlightening. But yes, that is also an entrepreneur as well, right? And basically, these guys took different factors of production and created something, right? Next on page 57. Hmm. Next on 57, excuse me, underneath technology, I want you to highlight the following. Technology is sometimes identified as a fixed factor of production. At any given time, a society can or has a certain amount of knowledge about the ways in which goods can be produced. And then I want you to skip two sentences and you'll see the word invention in bold. And I want you to say the following, or rather, highlight the following. The discovery of new knowledge is called invention, while the incorporation of this knowledge into actual production techniques and products is called innovation. Very good thing to underline in that regard, and how they're different as well. Now, on page 57, still, it says money is not a factor of production on the right hand side, right? And I want you to highlight the following. Money is often regarded as the key to everything else. People frequently say money can buy anything, or money is power. Money is important, and trust you me, I believe in that so much. Money is important, but it is not a factor of production. Put that down as well. Next thing, under the technique of the choice of technique, I want you to put the following down. When the production process is dominated by machines, we talk about capital intensive production, right? And that's the capital intensive in bold. On the other hand, if the emphasis is on labor, the technique is labor intensive, right? And capital intensive just means we use a lot of machinery to create our good, where labor intensive means that we've got a lot of people that we use in order to create our good. Right. And in regards to sources of income, the remuneration of factors of production, I'd want you to highlight the following on page 58, right at the top. It's got rent, wages and salaries, interest and profit in bold. Please highlight that full paragraph. And once you're done with that full paragraph on page 3.5, sorry, not page 3.5, 3.5 still on page 58, you'll see the word households. What I want you to do is put a C next to households. Please put a C next to household, a capital C. And then highlight the first sentence, being a household can be defined as all the people who live together and who make joint decisions, joint economic decisions, or who are subjected to others who make such decisions for them. Please definitely highlight that. Then in the third paragraph, I'd want you to highlight the following. Members of households consume goods and services to satisfy their wants. They are therefore called consumers. The act of using or consuming goods and services is called consumption. Moving right along, still on page 58, firms. What I want you to do is in your textbook, put the word, or rather the letter I, right next to firms. And then I'd want you to highlight the following under firms. Second paragraph. Whereas households are engaged in consumption, firms are engaged primarily in production. Firms are the units that convert factors of production into the goods and services that households desire. Firms are therefore the buyers in the factor markets and the sellers in the goods market. And we're going to discuss that very soon in the next section. In a market economy, it is firms that largely decide how goods and services will be provided. And then on page 59, we see, different types of firms. You guys did this in business management last year. Sorry, not last year, sorry, last semester. So I won't necessarily go into detail, but there you find obviously the different types of firms that you can establish, especially here in South Africa as well. Still on page 59 though, if you look right at the bottom right corner, you'll find the following. It says there, one of the factors of production purchased by firms is capital. Please highlight that. Then next in bold, you see investment and capital formation. Please highlight the following. The act of purchasing capital goods is called investment and capital formation. Right, we're almost done with the highlights, and then we'll take our break. On page 60, it says the government. Right next to that government, write the letter G. And then highlight the following underneath G. The third main source of spending in the economy is government. Government is a broad term that includes all aspects of local, regional, and national government. In economics, we often refer to the public sector. Still on page 60, I'd want you to move to the last sentence at the right-hand bottom of the page on page 60. And it says the following. The government's economic activity thus involves three important flows. Government expenditure on goods and services. This is usually denoted by the symbol G. Taxes levied on and paid by households and firms. Taxes are usually represented by the symbol T. And then a very important one there, guys, transfer payments. That is the transfer of income and expenditure from certain individuals and groups to other individuals and groups. Please make sure that you highlight that as well. Two last sections of highlights, and then we'll go for our break. The foreign sector on page 61. What I'd want you to put right next to the foreign sector would be the following symbol, and I'm just going to put it onto the slide. X minus Z. Put that right next to the foreign sector, right? And I want you to highlight the following. The fourth major sector, which is just the paragraph right underneath the foreign sector, the fourth major sector is to consider is the rest of the world, which we call the foreign sector. The South African economy has always had strong links with the rest of the world. The South African economy is thus an open economy. All right, and then we will end with the following, just before our break. Total spending, a summary. In this section, and I want you to highlight the following. The last sentence before the 4 bullet points. It says the aggregate spending in South African goods and services consists of spending by all 4 sectors. Spending by households on consumer goods and services, spending by firms on capital goods, spending by government on goods and services, spending by foreigners on South African goods and services, minus spending by South Africans that can be imported on goods and services. The total expenditure can therefore be written as C plus I plus G plus X minus Z. Guys, let's take a 10-minute breather and be back at exactly 2 o'clock. And then we'll head into the final section of this specific unit and call it a day as well. So I'll see you guys exactly at 2 o'clock. If you've got any questions, I'll still be online. So feel free to go ahead and ask. All right, just quickly checking in that everybody is here. And let me record the session. Is okay, it's still recording. Guys, we're now going to get into the interdependence between households and firms. Now, just to once again get the juices flowing, tell me, what is a symbol that we use for households and what is a symbol that we use for firms? Household C and firms? Brilliant. Right. So I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It is in your textbooks as well. And let me just make sure that I give you guys the page numbers for everything that we're going to discuss from here on out. You're really looking at page 62 onwards, right? Figures 3.2 all the way until figures 3.5. We're basically going to be discussing those. Okay, so basically we have your household here, which we had said we denote by the letter C. So I'm just going to put a quick C over here. The letter C in there. And what they do, and we're going to do the income first, what they do is that they've got factors of production. And we talked about the factors of production, and we said that, look, man, this is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These factors of production go to the factor market. And the factor market is a resource for companies to buy what they need to produce the products or their products and services, right? And what they then do is these products and services go to firms, which are the companies that the factor market engages with. And what firms do, and in this case, a firm is a business organization, such as a corporation, limited liability company, or partnership that sells goods or services to make a profit. So they make goods and services. And as a result of them making goods and services, households come in and they begin to start spending in that regard. All right, so the firms, we'll just put a quick I over there as well. Just right now, that is the income cycle. Let's talk about the spending cycle, right? And I'll use a different color to denote this. Households spend on goods and services. As they spend on goods and services, this forms as income to firms. Then what firms do is that they then spend that income in the factors market. And once they've spent in the factors market, which has your labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship, that money then goes to rent, wages and salaries, interest, and profit, depending on what factor of production it has been produced for. Okay, so in this case, you have your spending, which goes this way, whereas your income goes the other way. Let me know in the chat if you fully understand that and you're like, done, got it. And if you have any questions, also let me know in the chat, so you can also put your mic on. I'm happy either way, but let me know. Yes, Kieran.
Hi, so I just wanted to say, ask. So you said income goes anti-clockwise, right?
Yes, income goes
Yes.
anti-clockwise.
So that's income. So does that mean? Wait, can you just explain how the each? Wait, so then spending is clockwise. So the goods market. Wait, I actually don't
So
understand
it's
that.
the other way around. It's the other way around. Sorry, apologies. It's the other way around.
Wait,
Income
so
goes clockwise, and anti-clockwise is spending.
anti-clockwise is spend. Okay, so the households spend money on goods market. The goods market spends money on the firms to get um resources or whatever, and the
Income.
firms spend income. Wait, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
So the household spend. Go ahead.
the firms spend money on the factors market,
Here we go.
and then the factors market spends money on the households.
Yes, which would be rent, wages, salaries, interest, and profit.
Okay, and then the goods market receives. I mean, the wait, how does that work then? The firms receive income from good markets. The goods market
Yes.
receive income from households. Households receive income from factors market, and then it goes in that circle.
Yes. So in this case, the 100%. Now, when we look at households, they receive income because of their factors of production, and then the factors of production obviously go to the firms. The firms then have goods and services that they create, which go to the goods market, and those goods in the market, goods and services, then go to households.
Okay.
Good,
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks for asking. Lesedi, I saw your hand. Talk to me.
So can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So basically, the households contribute the factors of production to basically the firms get the ability to produce the goods or service from the factor market.
100%.
Okay, so then the firms compensate the households through rent, wages, and salaries,
Absolutely.
and then the households spend that rent and like the compensation at the goods market.
Absolutely.
Oh, and
And
then
that income, go ahead, continue.
yes, that income is derived from the households spending their money in the goods market.
Yes, that would be correct.
Oh, I see.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me then shift focus to the next bit. The role of the government in a closed economy. Just out of curiosity, guys, tell me, what is a closed economy? What is a closed economy? When we think of closed economy, what does that mean? There we go. Ah, yeah. No shade on the Koreans, but yes, that is a very close example. Um, very, very close example. So that is what a closed economy is. Basically, there's no foreign sector. That's totally put across. Caesar 100%, good example, the city, and Jared 100%. It's basically self-sufficient. But what we realize is that there's no such thing as a country that is self-sufficient. But for the sake of economics, let's understand what that actually means. So basically, it means that obviously that there's no foreign sector whatsoever. And the next thing that we also want to understand is just what is government and what does it play um, in this specific flow? What's the point of its existence? And we find that there's six different reasons as to what, or rather, different things that government actually does. Right. Firstly, it provides legal and social framework within which the economy operates. It also maintains competition in the marketplace. It provides public goods and services. It redistributes income. It corrects externalities, and it takes certain actions to stabilize the economy. Now, let me just get in just a bit deeper. You'll find that the best countries that have the best, and when I say the best, it's very relative, but countries that do very well in the sense of entrepreneurship, they've got the best legal systems. The best legal systems. It means that if I issue a contract to Kolile who says that, hey, I would love to use your services, sir, essentially what that means is that he will pay me accordingly, right? There will be no need for me to think twice as to whether this guy will pay me or not. Now, if you look at countries that have terrible legal systems and there's a whole lot of corruption, I mean more than South Africa itself, you'll find that those are usually the poorest countries. So what government does is that it's meant to ensure that it keeps its legalities and social framework in such a manner that the economy can operate. The second bit is competition. We all have heard of colluding, and that's something we talked about last semester in regards to oligopolies, right? And what did we know about oligopolies or monopolies is that they typically almost own the whole market, and what ends up happening is that they get to charge what they want when they want, and us as the consumers basically have to pay. All right, we don't want that. So what government does is says that you guys will have to compete, and therefore we've got a competition committee, if I'm not mistaken, that will sit down and make sure that everybody's actually doing what's right and not just charging us whatever they want to. The next is public goods and services, which we know to be as things like, you know, your lights outside, your park. Those are free public goods that we obviously get to enjoy. It also distributes income, and this is through, in this case, things like taxes, where they'll take from those who pay tax to then obviously give to entities that might not pay as much tax, but things like social grants and stuff like that all come from taxes. When you talk about negative externalities in this case, things like what we're facing right now, being COVID-19, you guys will realize that the government has bought lots of vaccines, and basically with that vaccine, we would expect to obviously begin to start lessening the numbers of people that get infected with COVID, right? So it's trying to correct an externality. Then last, it takes certain actions to stabilize the economy. And this, guys, man, this is going to be fascinating. We'll deal a lot with this when we start talking about money, which should be the next unit after this. But how does it fit into our picture is the big question that we need to ask ourselves. Well, basically what government does, and remember guys, this is exactly the same circle that we had before, right? Exactly the same circle that we had before. The only difference now is that we have government. That's it. That's the only difference. So with government, what it basically does is that it takes taxes from both firms and households. In return, it gives public goods and services on both ends. What government then does with the money is that they spend it in the goods market for tables, chairs, you know, a fleet of new cars and all of that, right? And therefore, they get also goods and services from the goods market. It also buys from the factor market as well, right? Remember, the factor market in this case is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. It also spends in that regard as well. Guys, the biggest spender that we have in South Africa is government. And when government spends, we all do pretty well. What we don't want, though, is the government to spend money it doesn't have and lead the country into a deficit. We prefer that it always has money, okay? Which is a problem that we are currently having with the economy as we speak right now. Sometimes governments will spend more than it has, get into debt, and obviously have to buy or get money from the IMF. And that begins to become a bit of a problem. All right, moving right along, let's talk about the role of the foreign sector. And in this case, the foreign sector, when we think of the foreign sector, it's X minus Z, where X is for exports and Z is for imports. And what we always want is that X needs to be greater than Z. When X is not greater than Z, what ends up happening is that we are at a deficit. It means that we've bought more than we've actually sold as a company to other countries. How does this look like in our circular flow of income and spending? Well, firms create goods and services that are bought by other countries. I'll just put the goods and services that are bought by other countries, right, using foreign currency. And then what will also happen is that households may import goods and services from the foreign sector as well, and use those as well. But also remember that, in the grander scheme of things, you'll find that households can also give their labor, land, capital, or entrepreneurship to a foreign sector, and the foreign sector could also give services, goods, and services to firms as well. But for here and now, according to your textbook, let's just remember that for now, firms are the ones that obviously give that, and households obviously consume. Out of curiosity, guys, let me know in the chat, what's one thing that you have bought that has been in a foreign currency? It could be over your phone, via an app, but one thing that you've bought thus far. Anybody, what's one thing that you've bought that is a foreign product or service? A hoodie from London. I see. Nice, Lizzetti. Hoodie from London, 100%, and the PS5 that's still on its way. Still on its way. All right, so those, obviously, you purchase them in rands, but then there's a exchange that's obviously made by the banks, who do it automatically these days, and as a result, you obviously be able to purchase anything from across the globe. So well done to Kieran and Lesedi in that regard. Right. Now let's talk about financial institutions. And I definitely resonate with Kieran's sentiments there. That is deep, man. That is deep. In concern with financial institutions, guys, just in the chat, game books for role-playing games and also gifts and fruit while on holiday. Perfect, Christopher, perfect. In regards to financial institutions, what financial institutions do you guys know? Let me know inside the chat. What financial institutions do you guys currently know? Nice, that is true. JSC is a banks, 100%. Anyone else, guys? Financial institutions? Tax havens are places where somebody does not pay taxes. That's what tax havens are. But that wouldn't be the financial sector. The question was, what financial institutions do you guys know? SARS is a financial institution. It does form, though, however, a leg of the government in the sense of it collects taxes and so forth. So We'd have to do something different, but it'll be, I'll show you on the next slide where SARS would fit in. But for now, guys, what other financial institutions do you guys know of? Brilliant. That's the one I was looking for. Insurance. And Kieran, I know that you mentioned this. Alan Gray. I know you mentioned him by name, but his company is also a financial institution as well. Right? So in this case, workers' unions not necessarily. So in this case, when we talk about financial sector, we're talking about the financial sector is the section of the economy made of firms and institutions that provide financial services to commercial and retail customers. They have to have a license for this, and that license is issued by none other than the FSB. So what households do is that they will save with the financial sector for good returns and so forth, and firms will also save as well. And as a result of these two entities saving, what the financial sector then does is says that, look, man, we have investment spending. If you've got a project, let us fund the project. You'll give us an interest, and you can build your or buy your capital goods as firms, right? And this is also seen as what we call an injection into the consumer, not consumer, circular flow of income and spending. That also being said, guys, remember that this is C, this is I. There's nothing for the financial sector, but for savings, it's denoted by S. Okay, now let's shift focus to the full diagram. Now, what this full diagram lets us know is that everything is now put where it needs to be put. We've got the foreign sector, we've got households, we've got the financial sector, we've got firms, and we've got government. This is like a full circular flow of income and spending. What's very important to note, however, are the things that basically take money out of this circular flow and things that put money into the circular flow. Things that take money out of the circular flow are called withdrawals, and things that put money into the circular flow are called injections. So on that note, tell me, when it comes to savings, is that an injection or is that a withdrawal? Let me know in the chat. Or you can put your mic on, one of the two. Yes, it is a withdrawal from the system. So I'll just put a W where I see that. What about investment spending? Yes, Kieran.
So I just wanted to ask, why is savings a withdrawal? Because isn't it like savings is like, oh, we're actually, can you actually just please explain why it's withdrawal? So
Sure, not a problem. So in this case, Kieran, if I earn, rather when I earn 100,000, right? What the government or what actually the government and the country want me to do is basically spend this full 100,000 rand, right? That's what they would want me to do. But if I decide that I'm not going to spend this full 100,000 rand, instead what I'm going to do is save, then what happens is that I only spend, and you're supposed to at least save 10%, but it'll say that I'm a good guy, so I save 20% of my salary. I'll then obviously only spend 80,000 rand. So there's been a 20,000 here that has been removed from the system as savings. And I'm only using 80,000 now. I hope that makes sense. That's why it's called a withdrawal. Now, in the longer scheme of things, guys, what will end up happening is that this savings that I'm saving will be used on something. But for here and now, not necessarily. And that's why it's called withdrawal because it takes away from me spending everything. Should you spend everything? No, you should save. Those withdrawals are very, very important. Pleasure, Kieran. Pleasure. So we've got your withdrawals here. We've got your withdrawal over here as well. Let me know about investment spending. Is investment spending a injection or is it a withdrawal? Absolutely. And let's keep going. When it comes to exports, injection or withdrawal? Interesting. And why do you say so, Kieran? Why is it withdrawal? And somebody else, please let me know, injection or withdrawal?
So you know what? I think I just messed up what I was trying to say. And it's an injection if you export, because if you export, you're selling, therefore money is coming in. So I think I just mixed up my understanding of what I was trying to say there. But I actually agree to everyone else why it's an injection. So yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well done. Nothing better than obviously being able to see one's flow and make the correct assumption. So well done in that regard. Yes, that is the case. And what about imports, guys? Let me know about imports. Ejection or withdrawal? Absolutely. Taxes, withdrawal or injection? That's very interesting. Why is it a injection? Let me know. And does everyone agree as to whether it's an injection or is it a withdrawal? Let me know.
I'm just assuming it's an injection because government is receiving money. Although people are not actively buying something, they're paying. But I could be incorrect. But I'm just looking at the fact that money is being injected into government.
That's a very brilliant logic in that regard. In this case, however, what taxes would form as would be a withdrawal, and let me just share as to why. It's exactly the same thing with savings. People are basically losing money, as Kieran is putting across. So if I were rather when I earn my 100,000 rand, what government does is that it will take 40% of this. So really, what I'm left with at the end of the month is only 60,000, which means that I cannot spend this 40,000 because it goes towards the government. Whereas if I had that money, then I'd obviously be able to spend it. So therefore, it forms a withdrawal. But now, on that same, yes, Tlelile.
I understand that logic, sir. I just wanted to ask now, since government takes that 40,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not able to spend it. However, government is taking that money with the intention of spending it, as opposed to money that is saved and is put away. Why does it still why is it still classified as a withdrawal, since the intention is for that 40,000 to be spent and not saved, although it's not by you and rather the government?
Brilliant question. And to answer that question, I would say the following. Remember that I could be spending. Somebody has taken my money, right? And I could have spent it on something in the economy, but then the government is taking my money and saying, we'll spend it on something else. So it's a withdrawal from me. It might be an injection for the government because they're getting the money, but it's a withdrawal from me. Does that make sense, Pelile?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No, pleasure's mine. But the logic is definitely there, and I've assumed the same thing. But in this case, it actually forms part and parcel of a withdrawal. Then, just to obviously give further information towards what Pele put across, when it comes to government spending, guys, that then becomes a injection, because what they would have taken from us via taxes, they try to give back through injections. Now, do they give it back is a different story for another day, but that is the effort that they try to make in that regard. Are there any questions in regards to this specific unit? Because as is, we are now complete with it. Are there any questions whatsoever, guys? Now's the time for you to let me know before we get into some questions and call it a day. Okay, then, and thank you so much for the feedback. Guys, let me know then the following answers to the next. I'm going to ask about 5 multiple choice questions, and then we're going to head into 3 structured questions. So the first one, and let's get the full 10 marks, is the following. The 3 major flows in a macroeconomy are. What's your answer? Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Okay, next one. In the circular flow of income and spending. Ooh, this is nice. This is nice. Whatever your answer here. Okay. Everyone else, we're waiting for you. Brilliant. B. All right. Tell me about 3. The distinction between a flow and a stock is that. Gas is on fire. Right, we've got 60% right now. Let's try to get that 80. Which of the following represents injections into the flow, circular flow of income and spending? Perfect. Right. And now for the 100%. Which flows represent taxes? Which flows represent taxes? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. That's a full 100% for our multiple choice questions. Let's move on to question number 2 for 4 marks. Consider the relationship between the three major flows in the macroeconomy: production, income, and spending. Would it be correct to say that the value of these flows should be equal? Yes or no? And then explain your answer. You can put your mics on for this one, or you could type out your answer. Up to you. Yes, Kieran.
Hi, so yes, so I just I could be wrong, but my thing is that if there's too much production and not enough like buying of what is being produced, then it could be overstocked, and like if it's things like food, it can go off, and
Mm-hmm.
then obviously income isn't balanced with the production, and if too much and if there's too much income and not enough spending, then um I mean it's probably not the best for the economy because nothing's being bought, and and like the money, like the cycle of money isn't going through the country, so then like the economy is starting to become bad, and then obviously if there's not enough spending, then you can't use that money to then produce more of what you want to sell. So it's like it kind of has to balance each other out. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
one one thing will fail. So yeah.
Okay. That's a very reasonable answer. So you're going with yes, right? Odile? Go ahead. Thank you, Kieran.
So mine is more of like a question, I guess. But when you're talking about value, we're referring to like a monetary value.
That'll be correct, yes.
Okay, I don't know if this is the correct answer, but I don't. I feel like in a business, you may want for there to be more spending from the customers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the reason why I think like that is because, for example, even if you don't have enough product, as soon as the product runs out, that's going to create scarcity, which is going to, I think, increase the demand for that product. And once we do have it, more people will be willing and able to buy it, and we can end up making more money that way. But I don't know if my type of thinking applies to the question right now.
Okay. All right. Brilliant thinking nonetheless. All right. Does anyone else want to attempt before we get the answer? I'll take that as a no for now. Yeah. All right. It seems that you guys keep saying, I don't know if it's right. Don't worry whether it's right or not. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Remember, there's a special saying that goes, the more you bleed in training, or rather the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. So the point is that you guys tell me exactly where your thoughts are, and as a result, we're able to take whatever is right about the thoughts and make it into the correct answer, or vice versa. Whatever is right, we obviously just further instill that it is right. So feel free to get things wrong as much as possible, so that when you do have your tests and your exams, you're in the right space and you obviously get things right. So in regards to explaining your answer, yes, these values should remain equal. But let's now look at this properly, right? Not properly, sorry. Let's look at this in another way. In regards to flows, what are flows? Just remind me, what are flows? You can put that into the chat or you can let me know. True, true, true. I should have said a flow concept in economics. You're right. It is a movement of something, right? But compared to a stock variable, so flow versus a stock variable, what is a flow variable? Sorry, Kieran, that was my mistake. I should have said flow variable. Awesome, right? So in this case, a flow variable is a variable that is measured over a period of time. And tell me, when it comes to production, income, and spending, is this a flow variable or is it a stock variable? Flow, absolutely. So therefore, we can distinguish the following: that they will equal each other. And you guys are all right. In the sense of business, we want to make sure that we are producing things that people will obviously buy to the point where we need to always produce more. 100%. You're on the money with that one, Tolile. Kieran, 100% with the whole, we want to make sure that eventually everything equals each other. So the answer to this would be yes. It would be correct that the value of these flows should equal over a period of time. And that's it. Yes, of course. Ceteris paribus. All right. And then we've got the full 4 marks. I basically said yes, I get my mark for that. I explained what the flow variable is and how it relates to the fact that it will not equal each other at a specific point in time, but it will equal each other over a period of time. Does that make sense, guys? Awesome. Great. Right, guys. This one I think that you guys would probably be able to get easy, so I'm just going to do one of them. Give me the or distinguish between consumption spending and investment spending. Sure. Distinguish between the following terms: consumption spending or investment spending.
Um, I can only think of this in terms of like examples, but
Hmm.
consumption spending would be what households do when they're buying goods and services from firms. And then
Yeah,
investment spending is when money is put into opening new businesses or expanding certain sectors of the economy.
100%. And I'll add the word there is what firms buy.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Awesome. That's your 2 marks done and dusted. All right, last question, and then we'll call it a day. Explain what is meant by the term transfer payment. And we did go through this in your textbook. Transfer payment. Is a transfer payment an injection into the circular flow or a withdrawal from the circular flow? Explain your answers by means of an example. Yes, Kieran.
So I just wanted to actually ask, is transfer payment, is that any different from just normal payment? Because I mean, a payment is a transfer of funds, is it not?
Yes, a payment is a transfer of funds, 100%.
So
And go ahead.
so I'm just asking, is transfer of funds, I mean, is transfer payment, is that just another way of just saying payment?
Transfer payment in this case is on page 61 in your textbooks. It's the transfer of income and expenditure from certain individuals and groups to other individuals and groups.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the confusing thing about economics is that the same term that we use for normal conversations means something completely different inside a textbook, right? Caesar says injection, welfare, financial aid. So you're 100% correct in that regard. But now the interesting thing about this question, guys, that I found fascinating is that at the initial point when the transfer is made, because it has to take money from people, right? So it says there in our books on page 67, or sorry, 61, transfer payments, that is, the transfer of income and expenditure, right? So it's transferring from one person to another. So when it makes that initial transfer, it's actually a withdrawal. When it, however, is paid towards people, it then becomes an injection. And what's an example of the injection? Well, Caesar, you definitely have it right there. It's welfare financial aid. Whereas a withdrawal in this case would then be um, a transfer payment in that regard, right? And a good example of that would then obviously be something like tax. Now, Simangaliso says, is it because of taxa? Yeah, yeah. It'll be, well, not because of tax, but because it basically takes money from somebody, and then obviously gives it to somebody else. So therefore, it forms part and parcel of a withdrawal. But once it's given, it becomes an injection. So back to that whole thing about tax as well. Tax forms as an withdrawal at the point of initiation, which means it takes it from the individual, but then it gives it towards somebody else. And as it gives it towards somebody else, it then obviously becomes injection via government spending. All right. Is transfer payment withdrawal? Yes, it is a withdrawal. Transfer payment is a withdrawal. But Swangiliso, thank you so much for obviously airing out your thoughts in that regard. And Caesar, that was a brilliant example. So thanks in that regard. Guys, this concludes our lesson today. Going forward, what I would expect you guys to do is that I'd want you to look at chapter 14 before we meet next time around. Do you have to understand the full chapter? No. But it'll be nice so that when we do meet up again, you actually have some sort of understanding. And all I need to do is basically go through it again. And that'll allow you, as the student, to obviously be in a space where you see it all over again. And remember, repetition is king. So as long as we repeat this over and over again, it becomes familiar and becomes therefore easier for us to answer when it's test time or exam time. But for here and now, if there are no further questions, do enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Very welcome, guys. Very welcome.